Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of Lost Dog by Alan Russell, performed by Jeff Cummings. Many years ago, and a dozen novels before this one, I wrote these words that I now write again. To Laura. Prologue. They once were lost, but now are found. Angie's growling awakened her. Heather Moreland didn't know what time it was, but the encompassing darkness suggested it was the middle of the night. "It's all right, Angie," Heather said, extending a hand to try and make contact with her dog. Angie was a so-called third-chance dog. After she was brought to the shelter and put up for adoption, 2 other owners had returned her, and Heather's adoption had come through the day before Angie was scheduled to be put down. Heather was Angie's call from the governor, but there wouldn't be any more chances for her. If Angie was returned to the shelter for a 3rd time, she would immediately be euthanized. Heather had been determined to not let that happen. More than a year had passed since Angie's adoption. The first 6 months had been particularly difficult for human and dog. It didn't matter that Angie acted the way she did because of human neglect and mistreatment. For the first 2 years of her life, she'd been tied to a short chain in a feces-filled yard with no access to shelter. Was it any wonder that Angie was still a work in progress? The dog had been slow to come around. She distrusted humans, and for good reason. All she'd known was neglect and abuse. Neighborhood boys had used her as target practice, pelting her with rocks. She'd gone without water and food for days at a time. She'd chewed on the chain that bound her until her teeth were bloody, but she hadn't been able to free herself from the metal snare. It took a long time before animal control finally responded to complaints about the treatment Angie was receiving at her first home. Officers had been forced to restrain her with catch poles. She'd fought them every inch of the way. Once Angie arrived at the shelter, no one was hopeful about her prospects. The staff had seen too many throwaway dogs like her before. She was damaged, what one of them referred to as a Humpty Dumpty dog. She couldn't be put back together again. Heather had taken on the challenge of proving the skeptics wrong. At the time, momentous changes were going on in her life. She'd left her husband and gotten her own place, and she'd felt this need to help the unloved and dispossessed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?